Oh, this is a topic that has truly got me buzzing. There's been so much chatter and so many whispers in the fandom about the new HBO Harry Potter series. And it really does beg the question, doesn't it? Will this new series perhaps even be doomed to fail? I've been sifting through all the lore and all the arguments, and I want to explore them with you, dear listeners. Harry doesn't have the same face. Ron doesn't have the same voice. Hermione isn't quite Hermione. And Snape? Ah, Professor Snape. His casting alone has pretty much broken the internet, hasn't it? That's right. We are now getting a shiny, expensive TV remake of all 7 books, each season dedicated to one book, stretching out for about 10 years. Original movies only ended a mere 15 years ago, and Harry Potter is still everywhere, isn't he? The merch, the theme parks, the absolutely obsessed Potterheads. Harry Potter never actually left. I've been hearing a lot of fan theories, and some suggest the only person truly excited about this is Tom Felton. I'm outside the studio with his blonde wig, begging for a chance. Perhaps even broomstick number 3 for a cameo. But putting humor aside for a moment, the vast majority of Harry Potter fans and the general public seemed absolutely livid at this announcement, calling it, rather aptly, an unnecessary cash grab. And I must say, is it difficult to argue with that sentiment? Warner Bros. Likely anticipated this, didn't they? They tried to lure fans back in by promising a faithful adaptation of the books. And to be fair, for a fleeting moment, that promise did resonate. As beloved as the movies are, they did leave out and alter a lot of major details from the books, far more than some people even realize. But then that tiny shred of hope was torn away as the casting announcements started rolling in, and in an instant, optimism turned to dread, as people realized they had been, well, completely lied to. Let's delve into these castings, shall we? On September 9th, 2024, HBO announced an open casting call for our beloved Golden Trio. Specifically, they asked for UK and Ireland residents aged between 9 and 11, with a commitment to inclusive and diverse casting. I know there was a collective sigh of relief that they were looking for UK performers, given the previous speculation about an American interpretation. Thank goodness for that. After 7 months and 30,000 auditions, our Golden Trio was finally announced. Dominic McLaughlin as Harry Potter, Alastair Stout as Ron Weasley, and Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger. Personally, I felt rather content, especially with Dominic as Harry. He simply looks perfect. But the reaction online was divisive in some of the most perplexing ways. Their first target, Dominic as Harry. Despite his seemingly perfect appearance, fans were devastated at one tiny detail, the color of his eyes. Have you seen the comments? Whining about him not having the iconic green eyes from the books? And I just think, wasn't Daniel Radcliffe's eyes a similar shade, and the world quite miraculously survived? My own logic finds this a touch dramatic. But then one concedes, HBO did promise a 100% faithful adaptation, didn't they? If you make such a grand statement, can you then be merely 99.9% faithful without facing a little scrutiny? However, what truly baffles me is the backlash against Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger. This casting felt like a definite win, which was apparently too dark for some people's liking. And yet, isn't it true that her casting is arguably more book accurate than Emma Watson's was? In the books, Hermione is described with bushy brown hair, brown eyes, and large front teeth. So, are the people claiming it's not book accurate perhaps being a little loud and a little wrong? And isn't it heartbreaking to see these young actors receiving such hate online? For so many, the original cast has become synonymous with the characters. So even if they cast someone who looks slightly different, book accurate or not, will people not still have a problem with it? As soon as people saw him, everyone collectively went, "Yep, that's Ron Weasley." It's a fascinating case study in audience expectation. Now, beyond the trio, many other castings seem rather solid. Dumbledore, perfect. Hagrid, Okay, not my absolute favorite, but okay. McGonagall, outstanding. And we even have a returning actor. No, not Tom Felton back as Draco Malfoy, though I'm sure his agent is still trying. Draco will be played by Locke Pratt, another spot-on choice. The returning actor is Warwick Davis as Professor Flitwick. Now, I was initially very excited about this, until I remembered just how few roles there actually are for dwarf actors, especially after Disney's Snow White debacle, swapping real performers for CGI. One can only imagine the hope for new opportunities among dwarf actors for this reboot, only for that one prominent role to go to an original actor. Does it not feel as though they can never quite catch a break? But all seem relatively well, until we get to Snape. A few months ago, it was announced that Papa Essiedu will be playing the role of Severus Snape, and from that point, one might argue they pretty much lost all the remaining fans. Now, that sounds harsh, doesn't it? But I promise it isn't for horrible reasons. The problem, as I see it, stems from the showrunners, Francesca Gardner and Mark Mylod, who openly describe themselves as mega fans committed to a truly faithful adaptation. But does it not appear they haven't read a single one of the books? Because Snape is arguably the most described character in the entire series, with the main descriptor being that he's pale, deathly pale. This is repeated countless times. So the casting of Papa Essiedu, a black man, has truly confused and angered fans who had placed their faith in that promise of faithfulness. The book also describes him as looking sickly and unpleasant, with greasy black hair and a hooked nose, hardly the kind of man one would wish to sit next to on the night bus. Does Papa fit this description? Absolutely not. He is, if I may be so bold, simply far too attractive for the role, far onto the other end of where the character should be. I don't quite understand the thought process behind this casting, and I can appreciate why fans are angry. But I want to make it clear this opinion has nothing to do with hating diversity or him as a person, because he's a great actor. As I've observed, any slight difference from the original characters, whether in appearance, ethnicity, or overall portrayal, can feel like a profound departure from the magical world people grew up with. This resistance isn't rooted in hatred, though I acknowledge some sadly exist. For most, it's simply the intense emotional attachment they have to the story. And moreover, was not Snape perhaps the worst character they could have chosen to change for a whole number of reasons? Firstly, Alan Rickman's portrayal will forever be cemented, not just in Hollywood, but in the minds of everyone. His performance was so iconic that nobody will ever be able to live up to it. HBO knows this. They know how iconic that character is, and they know that whoever they cast will get backlash. So why would they make it even worse for the actor by casting someone who looks the complete opposite? While the intention behind the diverse casting may be entirely pure, the reality is that they may have thrown this actor into a war zone of fan expectation, and I don't think that's fair to the actor at all. And then there's arguably an even bigger reason why this particular casting is so problematic. I encountered a Wonderful Creators viral video which explains it so eloquently. Doesn't it change the entire dynamic if James Potter were to be hanging a black Snape as depicted in the books? And then, doesn't it profoundly change how we view Harry when he's suspicious of perhaps the only black professor? This feels like a very strange move, doesn't it? And speaking of decisions that spark controversy, it's truly impossible to talk about modern Harry Potter without addressing the elephant in the room: J.K. Rowling's public reputation. Over the past several years, J.K. Rowling has been the subject of intense controversy due to her anti-transgender comments online. People were outraged when they found out she was going to be an executive producer on the show, and they, understandably, demanded that HBO make a statement. This is when the CEO of HBO, Casey Bloys, came out and essentially said that they've been working with her for 25 years and nothing is going to change that. He went on to say that no, Harry Potter isn't going to be secretly infused with anything, meaning the story won't suddenly include anti-trans propaganda. He continued by saying, I think it's pretty clear that those are her personal political views. She's entitled to them, and if you want to debate her, you can go on Twitter. So HBO basically said, yes, JK is involved, but the story stays the story, and her personal opinions aren't the script. Is that not the most PR-heavy answer imaginable? Because frankly, could JK go and commit the most unthinkable crime imaginable, and would HBO not still cling to her for life? Is it not clear that at the end of the day, none of this is about integrity? It's about cold, hard cash. Harry Potter is a never-ending money machine for these studios, isn't it? Which makes it difficult to believe they actually care about this reboot in the way that they claim. To most people, myself included, doesn't it just scream cash grab? But for the sake of exploring all angles, let's just pretend for a moment that they are going to put genuine effort into it. If that's the case, we should probably go over some reasons why this reboot could work. Because as impossible as it sounds, there could actually be some upsides to this. One of the biggest arguments in favor is the idea of giving each book its own season. And I have to say, as a fellow book lover, I am on board with this. There is nothing that frustrates me more than when my favorite book gets crammed into a 2-hour movie. The amount of story they have to cut just to fit the runtime, and more often than not, doesn't it just completely ruin the story? I know many claim the Harry Potter films are perfect, but do people truly realize just how much of the book's depth got lost in translation? Order of the Fifth has 766 pages. It's the longest book in the series, but somehow made the shortest film. Can anyone explain that to me? So now, with this reboot, we're looking at potentially 8 to 10 hours per book, instead of just 2-hour films. Imagine seeing Hermione's campaign for house elf rights as a fully fleshed out subplot, or exploring the Marauders' backstory in greater detail. There is just so much of the plot that the movies had to erase. The world-building potential of this reboot is rather exciting, isn't it? And more than that, the series promises to include all those excluded characters from the film, such as Peeves the Poltergeist, Winky the house elf, and Charlie Weasley. Yes, they removed an entire Weasley brother from the film. Then there's all the character development, which was pretty much non-existent for some. Ginny Weasley in the books is a fantastic character, funny, talented, and so brave. But in the films, wasn't she basically sidelined with her big moment being tying Harry's shoelaces? A show could finally give her the depth she deserves. I also have a feeling that if the show does well, there's huge potential for future spin-off shows. Imagine a show about the international schools, the Hogwarts founders, a Marauders prequel. The possibilities are honestly endless, and that does make me rather excited. But then a part of me wonders, why didn't they just do the spin-off shows in the first place, instead of remaking what was already done? Sure, the movies left out a lot of depth, but when you compare their cultural impact, is it truly comparable? If HBO came out and said they were releasing a Marauders prequel, wouldn't Harry Potter fans have absolutely lost their minds? And wouldn't it have been incredibly popular? I just can't quite understand why they would want to start this new chapter by alienating so much of their existing fan base. Does it not seem counterintuitive? They're acting as if the original movies are decades-old flops that desperately needed to be revamped, when that couldn't be further from the truth, could it? The last film came out just 14 years ago, and they're trying to justify it by saying they're bringing it to a new generation. Are kids these days suddenly allergic to movies made over 14 years ago? What on earth is going on? Harry Potter is arguably the most successful and cherished franchise of all time, and it seems to just be growing in popularity each year. I live in London, and you truly cannot escape it. Nearly every store has merchandise, and hundreds of thousands of people flock to the studio tour. So what happens when this new show is released? Are they just going to swap out everything they have so that this new cast can be the face of the brand? It's ridiculous, isn't it? The original performances were so iconic. Can they ever truly be topped or repeated? Well, apart from Warwick Davis, that is. Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith, Ralph Fiennes, Helena Bonham Carter, these actors weren't just playing roles. They solidified themselves as those characters. Can that ever truly be changed? The bottom line is Harry Potter just doesn't need to be remade. And I don't need to go on some big tangent about how good the films are for you to know that. You already know. Everyone already knows. And sure, one could simply brush off this reboot and pretend it doesn't exist. But do people truly understand just how damaging this show could be to Harry Potter's legacy? No matter if it turns out good, isn't it always going to be riddled with controversy and drama, just as it is now? So, for the next 10 years, will people not be associating Harry Potter with that messy TV reboot instead of the original films? For example, let's consider Game of Thrones, which absolutely captivated the world every year until that dreadful final season. Long story short, they completely rushed and put no effort into it, which ruined almost every storyline and character arc. So, although the earlier seasons are some of the best TV ever made, does this final season not overshadow it? And now, anytime anyone recommends the show, it always comes with a warning label, doesn't it? I just have such a strong feeling this will be the same thing for Harry Potter. And I can already predict future conversations having that exact same warning. I'll end this by bringing up what Chris Columbus said about the reboot. Chris Columbus, for those who may not know, directed some of the original films. He saw these photographs of what looks like a new Hagrid wearing the exact same costume they designed for the original, and he thought, what's the point? He expected different costumes, different everything, but it was more of the same. And I think, what's the point is the perfect conclusion for this entire thing, isn't it? Because truly, what is the point? The images of the story and the characters are burned into our brains for a reason. When people picture Harry, Ron, Hermione, Snape, Dumbledore, they're picturing the movies. That's the kind of magic HBO is messing with here. And can any amount of faithfulness ever truly recreate it? But that is the end of today's deep dive. Thank you all so much for listening. Do let me know your thoughts and opinions on this reboot in the comments below. I'm truly excited to see everyone's point of view. Are you excited for it or are you dreading it? Tell me. And if you made it this far, I want you to do something a little different for me and comment what Hogwarts house you're in. Because I'm a proud Gryffindor, and I would love to see where everyone else sorts. It tells you so much about a person, doesn't it?